What you just saw was the violent explosion that rocked a Humvee used by Ukraine's 59th Motorized Infantry Brigade. The troops were in the middle of an assault in the Donetsk region when they suddenly found themselves trapped in a minefield laid by Russian forces. This is the beginning of a new chapter in the list of brutal confrontations that the armies of both countries are carrying out. Each one seeks to prevail, displaying all the destructive power of its own arsenals. In this way, the loss of lives and resources multiply day by day, while the fierce war drags on without a clear end on the horizon. In this exceptional installment of military force, we will return to the bloody Ukrainian battlefield to learn from the inside the fight for survival. But we warn you, pay attention to where you walk, because one false step can send you flying through the air. Our dangerous path begins with the 59th Motorized Infantry Brigade, a military unit of the Ukrainian army that is part of the ground forces. It was created in 2014 in response to the invasion and conflict in the east of the country, particularly in Donbass, which includes the regions of Donetsk and Lugansk. There, pro-Russian separatist groups, supported by the Moscow government, tried to declare their independence from Ukraine. This sparked a conflict, especially against ultra-nationalist movements, which then led to the intervention of official troops. The brigade is made up of motorized infantry units, which means that its personnel travel mainly in light and medium armored vehicles. This allows it to have greater mobility and agility than traditional infantry, something essential for maneuver warfare and rapid operations. The main objective for its creation was to reinforce Ukrainian defenses against pro-Russian separatists participating in important missions in the eastern region of the country. In this context, it has stood out for its ability to resist on key fronts, playing an important role in both the defense and the offensives of Kyiv. In 2019, inspired by the bravery and exploits of its members, the brigade was renamed Yakov Hanzyuk in honor of that soldier, who fought for the independence of Ukraine during the Russian Civil War and is considered a national hero. This demonstrates the important place that the unit occupies within the nation's forces, and that is why the role it has had to play since the large-scale Russian invasion that broke out on February 24, 2022 is not surprising. The 59th Motorized Brigade has been on the front lines of battle in several strategic regions, fighting hand-to-hand in the bloodiest fights of the conflict in Ukraine. At the beginning of the conflict, the unit was quickly mobilized to protect the areas most threatened by the Russian advance. Due to its rapid deployment capabilities and motorized equipment, it was instrumental in defending strategic positions on the eastern border, an area familiar to it from its involvement in the Donbass War. In that region, it became essential in containing Moscow's first offensives, which attempted to advance rapidly to reach the south and center of the country. The Kremlin's soldiers encountered fierce resistance that slowed their progress on the ground. While the tenacity of the unit's defense helped keep the region under some control, over the weeks Russian troops finally managed to break through their adversaries' first barriers in other areas. As a result, the 59th Brigade was once again called into action. This time, its destination was Mykolaiv and Kherson oblasts, where the invading forces attempted to force their way west to take control of strategic coastal areas. There, the Ukrainian squadron participated in various actions, such as implementing fences around the most important cities, preventing Russian access to key infrastructure, and helping to consolidate local defenses in that region. Beyond being part of the resistance, the time also came to attack. In the second half of 2022, the brigade actively collaborated in the Ukrainian counteroffensive in the south. The mobility and flexibility of the 59th Motorized Brigade were decisive factors in the fighting, allowing them to launch quick and effective assaults, as well as maneuver in difficult areas to disrupt the Russian lines. In these battles, Ukrainian forces faced heavy shelling and the use of artillery and drones by the enemy. This put the maximum demands on the members of the armored infantry unit, who were involved in tough and prolonged operations. In these fierce battles, the advance of the Ukrainian 59th Brigade was due to different characteristics that accompany it. To begin with, its mobility, which we have already highlighted, allowed it to move quickly along different fronts, reinforcing critical positions and adapting to the changing needs of the battlefield. In addition, the good performance and the confidence placed in the unit has managed to keep morale and fighting spirit high, something that has been fundamental. The resistance of the troops, together with the support of the local population, allowed them to continue forward even in difficult situations such as the loss of comrades in violent clashes. Finally, the brigade, like other Ukrainian divisions, has received training and military supplies from Western countries. This has contributed to improving its operational capacity, especially in the handling of modern weapons, vehicles, and drones. All this allowed its participation in the brutal battle unleashed in the south of the country to culminate in the recovery of large parts of the territory in Kherson. This was one of the great successes of the Kiev forces, managing for the first time to liberate areas occupied by the invaders. Now, returning to the collaboration of the Allies, it should be noted that it has been key to the operation that we will learn about below, since everything begins on board a Humvee of American origin.
Група бійців має зайти на російські позиції. Ми маємо взяти їх штурмом, повернути Україні ще одне поле, ще одну посадку. Ворог готовий, чинить серйозний опір. Тим не менше, 59-та бригада зосередила сили. Зараз буде результат.
This soldier belonging to the Ukrainian motorized unit was one of the participants of the operation carried out in early August 2023. The troops were advancing along a road in the Donetsk region with the aim of clearing an area occupied by Russian soldiers. Several vehicles are part of the mission, including tanks and the aforementioned Humvees provided by the United States to Kiev. The latter are multi-purpose vehicles weighing more than 2,300 kilos, capable of exceeding 100 kilometers per hour in difficult terrain. And as if that were not enough, in addition to their versatility in the field, they have resistant armor under the body, accompanied by energy-absorbing seats to withstand the most brutal enemy attacks. Up to the time of that operation, more than 2,000 units of this transport were part of the American aid packages. However, the robust military vehicle was about to face a test of fire. Ukrainian fighters were approaching the enemy zone when suddenly, one of their tanks rose into the air, propelled by a furious explosion. Immediately, the soldiers understood that they had just entered a minefield laid by Russian forces. Every meter became a matter of life or death. At any moment, the group of armored vehicles advancing through the terrain could activate a new explosive, and the end would come. The tension grew second by second, and as if the situation were not pressing enough, the rival troops who were waiting in ambush jumped onto the scene, opening fire on the Ukrainians.
Go, 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 go!
The battle was on several fronts when what everyone feared finally happened. One of the Humvees was caught under fire, forced to maneuver over terrain filled with explosives. The risk increased with every inch, and death stalked all the occupants of the Ukrainian vehicle. However, the soldiers had no choice but to stay on the move and try to counterattack the adversary with a burst of gunfire. While the gunner took his position and the roar of his weapon filled the air, the other warriors jumped into the field determined to finish off any rival who crossed their path. Moments later, a violent mine explosion engulfed the interior of the transport. Flames lit up the cabin as a shockwave shook the interior. However, against all odds, all the soldiers in the Humvee managed to escape the flames and chaos. The vehicle's thick armor played a vital role, deflecting much of the impact of the detonation and protecting the Ukrainian fighters from the deadly shrapnel. Reacting quickly, the gunner climbed down from the turret while two of his companions hastily evacuated the cabin, dodging Russian fire from hidden positions. These members of the 59th Motorized Brigade had just come face to face with death, and they won that battle. But there was no time to think about it. Once again, their lives hung in the balance in the middle of hostile territory. Leaving the column of black smoke and flames behind, the Ukrainian troops advanced towards an area where they could find the protection of the forest. The objective was to regroup and continue the assault that had just begun. There was still much work to be done.
Було прийнято рішення відпрацювати по ворожому окопу з РПГ. Після пострілу пішли вже в ход пішли гранати хлопців. Хлопці молодці, була комунікація, вони чули командира. Тоді я пам'ятаю, він сказав, що один вже виходить з окопу, але ще ворог знаходиться на позиції. Позиція не чиста.
Rocket-propelled grenades eliminated several enemies, but the brigade was determined to finish the job. Beyond the adversaries on the battlefield, however, another surprise awaited the Ukrainians. The Russian forces that had mined the ground were also monitoring it with the use of technology. As the men from Kyiv advanced toward their goal of defeating the Kremlin fighters, a new threat presented itself. The sound of an FPV drone was heard in the sky. These unmanned aerial vehicles feature a camera that allows their operator to observe the field in real time and attack the adversary while remaining in a safe position. These advantages of technology have been implemented by both sides, but in this case it was the Ukrainians who were about to fall victim to its full power.
І хлопці кричать «дрон». Я повертаюсь, бачу, що дрон зовсім іншої моделі, дуже низько просувається над посадкою і так, прямо на нас заходить. Добре, що ми зреагували і вийшло підбити той дрон камікадзе, який загорівся ще в повітрі, як бенгальський вогник. Почав горіти, завис на декілька секунд, потім впав і ще досить довго горів, потім взірвався.
After the Russian drone was reduced to ashes, a moment of calm dominated the scene. The Ukrainian troops had survived the different and brutal war tactics of their enemy, managing to recover that occupied territory. The successful assault was a reason for celebration, but that satisfactory feeling did not last long. It was time to continue advancing. The soldiers were aware that the war does not rest and the battle must continue. In every corner, a new threat awaited, where the adversary would take advantage of any moment of distraction to strike a hard blow. Violence has become part of the daily life of Ukrainians and Russians, who have become accustomed to living among the sound of bullets and mud trenches.
Bunker! Bunker! Get down there! Get off his arm!
War material from American soil has really become a fundamental factor for the resistance of the invaded country, both for the protection of its troops and for attacks on the enemy in the case of weapons such as anti-tank missiles and other types of projectiles. For this reason, the Ukrainian authorities thank their ally, recognizing the support and highlighting the resistance of the Humvees. In the same way, Kyiv is working on tactics to accompany and enhance the arsenal it has. In the particular case of minefields, such as the one that the 59th Motorized Brigade had to face, several aspects are taken into account. The one we were able to observe is the use of powerful armored vehicles by the troops. But to that are added other strategies, such as the implementation of drones equipped with thermal cameras that can detect explosives. When these types of threats are found, robots specially designed for demining the land are sent, which can be operated remotely to clean dangerous areas without exposing the soldiers. On the other hand, Ukrainian military personnel have received both internal and external training to detect and neutralize these buried bombs safely. Engineering teams supported by international organizers dedicated to removing mines left over from war have helped train combatants and civilians in tactics to avoid and defuse the explosives. These teams carry out manual sweeps and use metal detectors to locate them. However, despite all the tasks that can be carried out, the danger is constant. Even the most trained men have fallen victim to the brutal conflict that is raging between Ukraine and Russia. The 59th Motorized Infantry Brigade, despite being one of the most distinguished forces in the country, lives with enormous challenges to survive. Not only is it exposed to minefields, but it must also face massive bombardment, artillery attacks, and constant fire from Moscow. The adaptability, resilience, and effectiveness of Kyiv's forces will be a decisive factor in the future of the war. Now, after having learned about this incredible story of Ukrainian resistance, it is time to say goodbye. Thank you very much for having accompanied us until the end. We look forward to seeing you again in the next military force video.